Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. Got a great show for you tonight, this August 31st of 2017, the last day of August, and we'll be heading into a new month tomorrow, and lots of great things happening all around the golfing world, and we're glad that you could join me tonight. I'm going to start off with a great Coach's Corner here in just a moment or two. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest, Chris Czaja. He's a PGA Professional and PGA Teacher of the Year for South Florida and the Southeast Florida PGA Teacher of the Year as well. He's going to be joining me on the second half of the show. Always glad for you guys to join here on the program. We are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on blogtalkradio.com network. Again, quickest way to find us, go to blogtalkradio.com. Up in the search key, just type Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the main page. And as I said, we are live on Thursday evenings from 6 to 8 Central. But for some reason, if you're not able to join us, not to worry. Just go to that link at any point after the show and just scroll down to the on-demand section, and you can check out all of the previously aired shows, including tonight's, in their entirety. The recorded versions are all stored there on that page. And also, for those of you that maybe like to tune in via a different media platform, such as iTunes or Stitcher.com, visit either of those, and under the podcast section, again, just type in Golf Talk Live, and you can listen through either of those platforms as well when it's convenient for you. But again, thank you for joining us live tonight. If you're interested in calling in anytime during the live broadcast on Thursdays, you can do so. The number to call is area code 646-716-4667. Again, that number is 646-716-4667. Or you're certainly welcome to email me questions or comments about the show to ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And also, you can use that email if you're somebody in the golf profession. You don't necessarily have to be a teaching pro or a coach. You can maybe be an entrepreneur or somebody that's maybe created a great product or maybe written a great book about golf that you think would be worth sharing with the audience. By all means, please reach out, and I'll do my best to get you on the show. Also, update social media every week on Facebook.com and also on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO. CEO, of course, is in capital letters. And also on LinkedIn.com under my personal profile, Ted Odorico. So just go to any of those media platforms and you'll get updates for the show, Golf Talk Live. And as I said, thank you for joining me. I'm going to introduce the guys here in just a quick moment, but I wanted to give just a special announcement in lieu of all that's been going on in the last few days here in the news with some of the tragedy that's gone on out in the southeastern part of the United States, particularly in Texas and also Louisiana. Obviously, I'm sure by now you're all familiar with what's gone on with Hurricane Harvey and just much devastation and a lot of just difficult times for a lot of folks out there. First and foremost, I want to extend heartfelt condolence to all of the families out there who perhaps have lost a loved one during this tragedy, and also to those that maybe have lost some of their property and others as well. Just our thoughts and prayers are out with you each and every day. And for those of you that maybe have been listening to the media and thought, well, how can I help some of the great folks out there? I'm going to make a suggestion, and the reason why I'm going to do it this way is, unfortunately, during some of these tragedies, it spawns a lot of, shall we say, less than savory characters who like to take advantage of these situations. So I'm going to suggest, if you do want to participate, that you do it in one of two ways. Reach out to your local counselors in your area, in your region, or maybe your churches in your area, and ask how you can help. Many of them have jumped on board and gotten involved and wanted to reach out. Or some of the more nationally recognized, like the Red Cross, are certainly doing things as well. But reach out to those organizations. don't give through social media platforms, just because I know some of them can be scams and have been proven to be scams over time. I don't know of any at this particular junction, but just be extra cautious. So do your due diligence before you give any resources, particularly your financial resources, to help out. Make sure that you're dealing with a reputable organization. And as I said, the best way to do that is to reach out through your local church and or your local government offices and find out where the best way that you can help. So again, our thoughts and prayers with all the folks out there, and Godspeed that everything gets back to normal for you. I know it's been difficult, and you'll be in our thoughts and prayers over the next weeks and months to come. As I mentioned, we're going to be starting off the show here with Coach's Corner. And I got two great guys on the show tonight. John Decker, of course, has been on the panel and also been a guest many times as well. And back again this week, of course, is Clint Wright. He stepped in last week along with my good friend Pete Buchanan when I had a couple of cancellations. So he's back on his regular scheduled night, which is this Thursday. So let me just tell you a little bit about the guys, and then we'll bring them on and start the discussion. John Decker, of course, he's currently a teacher professional at the New Albany Country Club in New Albany, Ohio. In 2015, he was named the Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year. Prior to that, of course, he was the head instructor at the Grand Cypress Academy of Golf in Orlando, Florida, where he worked under two top 100 instructors, Fred Griffin and Phil Rodgers. He's also the author of a great book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, and he's also now offering a new Bible study with his book as well. And he's also been a motivational speaker for many, many folks all over the United States. And just a great gentleman, and honored to have him on the show here tonight once again. And also my good friend Clint Wright. As you know, he's been, jokingly, I've been teasing him over the years as he's working from the back of the bus up to the front of the bus. He's a 30-year member of the PGA, partner at TGM Golf, and a big proponent of the R3 approach. And one of the best, in my opinion, covering the short game today, just as a plethora of knowledge. Plus one of my favorite guests and panelists here on the Coach's Corner. Guys, welcome to the show, and welcome to Coach's Corner.
Great to be here, Ted. Thanks.
Thank you, Ted, for having me.
Not a problem. All right, guys, as I mentioned to you off the air, what we're going to do tonight, since there's just the two of you here, it makes it a little bit easier to do this platform. We're going to go through what we traditionally refer to as a three-hole playing lesson. I know you guys have probably done something similar in your teaching and throughout your career. And I'm going to set some things up just a little bit to make it fair. John, as I mentioned off air, we're going to start with you first here. So here's the scenario very quickly as far as your players are concerned. Again, this is a three-hole playing lesson. We're going to start with a par 5, a par 3, and then finish up with a par 4. Your player handicap is going to range from 15 to 25. The reason why I'm doing a 10-point spread on your player is, as we all know, a lot of people are a little fuzzy with their handicaps unless they've been playing for any length of time. And we're going to treat this as somebody relatively new coming to your great facilities. And so I want you just to kind of have an idea that they could be closer to a 15 or they may be up to a 25. So we're just going to have that spread, if you will, just to give yourselves a little bit of a better understanding of the player. John, as I mentioned, we're going to start with you. We're going to start off with the par 5. This is a 540-yard par 5. And essentially, here's what's going to happen. On the tee box, your player hits a poor drive deep into the rough on the right-hand side of the fairway, leaving about 320 yards approximately to the green. In fact, he might even be OB. What's your player's next action or strategy to ensure a chance, or certainly give a chance, at maybe saving par? What are your thoughts on that, and what would your next step be given the information I've just given you?
Okay. Thank you, Ted. And his handicap, could you tell me what his handicap is? It just ranges in that range?
Yes, it's going to range, yeah, because, again, you haven't been working with this particular player, so it's going to be a 15 to a 25. So you have to sort of factor in, it could be somewhere in the middle. It could be closer to 15, closer to 25, right.
Gotcha. The first thing I do is, let's just say, we'll kind of split the difference, and let's just say it's kind of like an 18. The first thing that I do with any playing lesson is if I know their handicap, is I tell them, all right, you're on a par 5, but this is not a par 5 for you. It's actually a par 6 because you're an 18 handicap. You're not a scratch golfer. So I would have that information already in his head before he's hit the shot. He's hit on a 540-yard hole, having 320 yards. we've got to break this down into, first of all, getting back into play. That is our number one objective. And based on the fact that he's in heavy rough, he's going to need some sort of lofted club to get out. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they hit a poor drive is they try to bite off more than they can chew. They try to make it up on their next shot. And I try to explain to them, you've got anywhere from, in this case, a par 5, you've got 3 to 4 more shots before you're actually going to be on the green. One of them is just getting back in play, assuming he can advance the ball forward at all. If there's anything in front of him, he might literally have to go sideways, and in some cases you have to go backwards. But the first thing I do is a lot of times I'll ask them before they've hit their shot, what are you going to try to do here? I don't give them any kind of heads up, and then as soon as they pull their hybrid or 3-wood out, that's when I kind of jump in there and say, okay, let's think about this. Let's try to find the best gap in the trees, because we're in the trees, in the heavy rough. Let's try to find our widest opening to get the ball back into play, and then go from there.
Well said. Now, in the case, and again, this is a playing lesson, so it's not an actual tournament situation or what I would classify as a legitimate round. But would you also, because I did make the point that he might have actually hit it OB, would you instruct him about hitting a provisional just to be safe, even though I know it's a playing lesson, just to get him in practice to doing that in a real situation?
Yes, and with playing lessons, one of the first things I'm basing it on is who's behind me. If there's groups behind me, and obviously,
Sure.
Those types of things. So, but assuming that's not an issue, yes, absolutely, I would talk about the rules. That ball, we don't know whether that ball is inbounds or out of bounds, and absolutely, I think every playing lesson I try to cover at least one rule, especially with a mid to high handicapper, because I am amazed at how many people that I go out with in playing lessons, they don't know anything about the rules, and they end up costing themselves more strokes because they don't understand the proper way to take, relief from, a car path, or how to, when they hit the ball into a lateral water hazard, their options. They have more than just taking 2 club lengths that they can, there's all kind of, they have 5 options actually in a lateral water hazard. So I make sure and cover all of that as well.
Yeah, and in a case, obviously, as you pointed out, John, where you might have groups coming in behind during a playing lesson, obviously you don't want to hold them up, but just the fact that you mention provisional and understanding that particular rule and what his options are is a good thing to ingrain into your student. I like your answer. I think you had some great points. Well done. Clint, you're going to have a little bit easier time. Yeah, perfect. Clint, you're going to have a little bit easier time. Again, we're going to take the same par 5, 540 yards. However, your player hits one right down the middle, about 245 yards, leaving just under about 300 to make it home. Still a long stretch. What steps do you advise your player to give them the highest chance at par, or even maybe a chance at birdie? What is your approach to a player at this level?
Well, what I would be, generally when I do a playing lesson, I like to talk more in kind of general terms or philosophy.
Sure.
Because like John was saying on where his player was at, I'm going to try to get that player to understand that the philosophy is not to allow one bad shot to multiply into several more.
Right.
Like I say, get it back in play type thing. So what I'm going to look for is to talk to this person, not about a specific shot, but if you're here again, here's the theory and your thought process you need to use. Now, obviously, he's not going to get to the green in 2. He's 300 yards out. We really don't know right now. Maybe is there cross bunkers or anything like that that's up there in that range that we want to try to avoid. But let's assume right now that there's nothing up there but maybe a couple of greenside bunkers that he's most likely not going to be able to get to. So what I want him to be able to do is, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about last week, what's his go-to third shot? What's he the best at?
Right.
Does he have a good 75-yard shot, or has he got a good 50-yard shot? Most likely he's out there at 300 yards. He's not going to be able to get it much closer than about 100 yards from the green, with a fairway wood. So I want him to try to get it into his go-to shot that he's already. Hopefully, we've taught him that already, and then I want him to hit the second shot with his favorite club. Again, one that he knows he can move forward and keep it in play most of the time. Obviously we all hit bad shots, but he needs to understand what his go-to third shot is, and what I want to and kind of embed in his mind is when he gets here again and I'm not standing there, he then has the right thought process to try to figure out what to do. Well, I can't get there. I want to hit something in that range that I know I can be reasonably successful with to give me my best, or at least the close to my best third shot into that green. So think about moving it forward in a safe manner and then play to that third shot again. Where's his go-to shot at? Now, assuming that we may have a couple of cross bunkers up there now, he's got to make a decision on whether to lay up short of them or try to go over them. So obviously then it would depend on how far away he is. But as we all know, those cross bunkers at 75 or 80 yards out or maybe a little closer is one of the most difficult shots in the game. So in that particular case, I would most likely encourage him, if those cross bunkers are right at his range of distance for his second shot club, to maybe back up and play short of them to be safe. Again, giving him the best shot option.
Yeah, and a great answer as well, Clint. Really, I think what the message or theme, if you will, tonight that I really want to express to the listeners is not so much what you would do or what they should or shouldn't do, but to incorporate some strategy and thought into the process. And this is what you guys really are here and what we're trying to do on the Coach's Corner panel, is to make people think about and exercise a little bit of thought process before they just reach for a club or think about executing a specific shot. They need to look at all of the options. Obviously, they have time restraints on a golf course. They can't take forever. It's not like the lesson tee. So they have to be well-informed about the situation, but they also need to be willing to step up there and execute whatever shot may be needed based on the information that they've discovered. And this is really what your job as professionals, going along with them on this 3-hole playing lesson, is to help sort of be that voice, if you will, of reason and rationality, if you will, to sort of bounce ideas and suggestions to help them learn and develop the skills that are going to help them propel themselves a little bit better around the golf course. So great job, guys, on the first one. All right, the next one, John, we're going to go back to you. Okay. This is a par 3. It's a 179-yard par 3. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of the lay of the land, just to give you an idea. Your player, first off, has not hit anything yet, but here's what you're looking at. Again, par 3, 179 yards, deep bunkers, front, left, and right. So you got deep bunkers in the front. The green slopes from front to back with water running down the entire left side of the hole. The pin is cut back left, giving your players handicap level or range, if you will. What advice would you give for them to play this hole, knowing what trouble is surrounding, potential trouble is surrounding, and given the fact that they are certainly a mid to high handicap player? What would you start them off, and what would you advise them to do in a hole like this?
Just so I'm clear on this, the front of the green is the low point or the high point? You said it slopes from to front to back, so it's the front of the green is the high point. The high point, okay. All right, so it's going away from right, and it's protected with 2 deep bunkers on both sides, front left and front right. Front. Yeah. Well, that's and the pin is cut. Yeah, pin is cut back left. Yeah, pin is cut back left. Well, the first thing I would tell them is that pin is invisible. That pin, you don't even think about that pin. I said, a tour player is not going to think about that pin really because of the water's left, and we have got to avoid the water. The first thing I do is I say, where can we not go? In the first place you cannot go on the golf course is out of bounds. The second place you cannot go is the water. And then the third place is going to be, it would be the trees and then the bunker. So I would say we have got to eliminate the water. So the pin's on the left, we forget about the pin. the fact that the green dynamics makes this very difficult, because the first thing I would be telling him to do is he needs to club himself to the middle of the green. Because if he clubs himself to the front of the green, he brings both bunkers into play, and that's not going to be a good scenario for him, in that case. So, most likely a handicap player that's in the 15 to 25 range from 179 yards, I mean, a lot of people are going to be using hybrids. Some people, if they happen to be a little longer hitter, then they have a chance. But my main focus would be to try to carry the ball to the middle of the green. The 179, was that to the pin or was that to the middle of the green?
Middle of the green.
You said the middle of the green. So that in that scenario right there, I would be, what is your 180 club? Let's just assume there's no wind, and let's try to hit the ball in the middle to even right, even if we have to miss it a little bit right. And if we hit on the green and we go through the green and because of it, we're going to be hitting on a downslope, then we just have to chip from there, and we can play from anywhere long and anywhere right. We cannot play from left, and short is no bargain either. So, that would be a very, very challenging hole. If he is a really, really, really high handicapper, you would even consider, of course, if he's a real high handicapper, he would probably be playing from closer up. But, based on the bunkers and trying to thread it through those bunkers, that's a very difficult shot because, a lot of times people who can't carry the ball that far, you might even consider some sort of layup, situation, and you don't, just to give them an opportunity. So that would be a tough situation for anybody.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to make some of the scenarios, and Clint, I'm going to get to yours here in a second because yours is going to be even different still, is unfortunately a lot of high handicappers with just some of the golf courses, some of the resorts out there that they might be playing, even some of the private clubs that members play, can be very, very challenging and have holes very similar to what was just described. And a lot of them really come at it with very little course management and figure, okay, well, it's 179 yards. I'm just going to pull out whatever club that hit that distance and kind of go for it, despite all of the trouble way around. So they have to weigh their options, and you laid out some scenarios, John, very, very well. I might even consider, as in addition to that, you talked about maybe hitting more to the right side of the green. If there was a large enough protected area to the right, even further still, I might even have them bail out a little bit there because, again, with the bunkers in the front, they've got an open side from the right side of the green, and since the pin is in the back left, might give them a great opportunity for a bump and run or a chip shot to the pin. Might not necessarily make par, but it eliminates all of the trouble. So great scenario, John. Well done. Clint, I'm not letting you off the hook. We've got one for you as well. Yours is a little bit shorter. Yours is only 159 yards, par 3. But yours is an island green with water surrounding the entire green. It's a two-tiered green which slopes left to right with a pin cut on the upper level, which is back right, roughly about 3 feet from the fringe, with a large bunker back right. Given your player's handicap level, what advice would you give your player to play this particular hole, and what is some of the options you might present for your player with this scenario? So,
where's the drop zone
island
at?
Green, water. I would say probably about.
That's what we need to talk about today is the drop zone.
Come on, Clint, be a little adventurous. We'll say that.
Oh man, I hate it. I shouldn't have done that. But obviously, it's a very difficult hole. 159, island green. It depends on how big the green is too. Man, if it's the 17th green at the player, at Sawgrass, if the green is kind of large, we got some room, off the green a little bit. Again, here, I mean, you have to give the person an opportunity to try to figure out what to do. We're hoping that he's got a good club for about 160. That's looking for that number. Generally, probably what I would look to is to try to get a person to take a club that is his maybe 165 to 170 club, and try to just hit maybe a little three-quarter kind of punch shot, a little three-quarter. Depends on what what we've been practicing. But I always like to get a person to think about on these shots is try to hit a little bit of a cruiser type shot. We don't need a maximum swing here. We need a little control. And go to, I'm assuming they're at their handicap range here. They're probably going to hit a little fade or a little push. Generally speaking, for that level of player, is to try to hit his cruiser shot in there, to not try to have to maximize or hit the perfect shot here. It's very difficult, and obviously I'm going to get him to aim at the middle of the green, because anything on top of the ground is going to be a good shot. Just aim at the middle of the green. The best, like John was saying, even on his scenario, the tour player is not even looking at that flag. I mean, it's just you try to get it on the surface with your most comfortable shot that you're not going to have to press or swing hard with, and then try to chip and putt, see what you can do with it.
Yeah, great answer, by the way. The reason why I wanted to do that scenario, Clint, is, and just for an FYI, I actually originally had it at 193 yards, and I thought, no, I'm going to make it a little bit easier, because that would really be a push for any level of player, particularly high handicapper. So I thought, well, I'll ratchet it down to 159 for you. The other factor that you have to consider, as I mentioned, it's a two-tiered green, and obviously with the pin cut in the upper level or upper tier, which is back right. One of the issues that you see with a lot of your high handicappers is they figure they've got to make it up to that upper tier every time in order to give themselves a chance. And this is where the dangers come in, because the pin, again, they have a lot of green to work with, as you said. Hitting it to the center of the green, even if they're on the lower tier, they can still have an opportunity to make par. And if they're really lucky, they might even tap one in or chip one in, depending on where they've hit their made their miss. Might even hole out and get a birdie. One of the things that I see, and we see this at TPC Sawgrass all the time, obviously these are professionals, is trying to go for the pin sometimes when it's on that upper tier, especially on Sunday. And a lot of times what you'll see is they'll end up overcooking the shot and having to go, as you talked about, to that drop zone more often than not, which can be even a little testy in itself. So I like the way that you really sort of gave an option of not to even consider going for that pin, to sort of block it out of their mind and shoot for the fat part of the green and be a little bit more strategic in their thinking. And this is really what we want our amateur golfers, especially high handicap golfers, because they're losing strokes all the time in their rounds by bad decisions. It's not so much their golf swing that's causing them to lose the strokes. It's their level of thought process going into the shots that they're making and making poor choices that more often not cause them strokes. So I like the answers that both of you gave on your par threes. John, we're going to bounce it back to you, unless anybody else has another comment or question on that.
Just real briefly, and you're hitting on it quite well. One of the things that you see with this level player is it never crosses their mind to let their short game bail them out of a bad shot.
Yeah.
It never crosses their mind that they can get it up there around the green somewhere, chip and putt, and still make par. Because they never see that on television, hardly. To where the tour players miss the green, they chip it up and tap it in for par. They don't see that very often. So they don't understand that even the best players in the world are doing that 5 or 6 times around. So that's the point I try to make in some of my playing lessons, obviously, is that, hey, you got a short game, you got a wedge and a putter for a reason. So rely on it.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Clint. And this is, again, I can't emphasize enough, one of the problems I think for a lot of our high handicappers out there is they get into a mindset once they get out on the golf course. On the practice tee, they'll play around, they'll experiment, but then more often than not, they'll revert back to a lot of the mistakes that they've been making. A lot of times we might give them a situation in a playing lesson like what we're talking about here tonight, but they'll revert back to some of the common flaws and mistakes that they made because it's a comfort zone for them. They're not confident yet in trying some of the new things that we're talking about, so they'll revert back and keep making those same mistakes, and that, of course, increases their level of frustration. So you're exactly right, Clint. They've got to trust. They've got to build a good, solid short game, because the long game is not going to win the golf tournament. The short game is what's going to win it. So once they've worked and built the confidence in a short game, if they, as in the first scenario that John had, where they've hit it into the right rough, they're going to feel confident about first and foremost, getting that ball back in play, and not trying to, pull off a hero shot and go for, 300 plus yards, because most players, even most tour players, are not going to take that shot unless they know for 100% certainty that they're going to get it within the distance they need to get it. So they need to sort of scratch that out of their thought process and go with the strengths that they know that they've built with their coach or their teaching professional over the last several lessons and so forth. So great answer so far. Guys, you guys are just doing a phenomenal job. I knew this was the right panel to have this particular discussion tonight. John, this is the last one for you, but we'll certainly carry on conversation afterwards. This one now is, of course, a par 4, 464 yards, very long par 4 for many. This particular hole, the water intersects the fairway, so in other words, it runs all the way across the middle of the fairway, needing a stiff 240-yard drive to carry the water. Your player, again, given their skill level, is unsure whether to attempt the carry or lay up. Explain the options on either scenario, again, given your player's skill level, some of the options that you would suggest and why you would suggest them.
Well, the first thing is I would emphasize to my student that he or she is not on a par 4, they are on a par 5, because at their handicap level,
right,
they get one shot per. So this is a par 5. So basically, what I say to them is I would convince them, unless they have just a tremendous breeze behind them, or if it's an elevated tee and it's downhill or things like that, unless it's something, or they're an unusually long hitter, I'm going to try to convince them in this situation to lay up. And the way I look at it is let's go ahead and we hit a 200, let's just say we hit a 230-yard shot. That's going to leave us 234 yards to the hole. And then basically I say to him, the shot that I gave you on the tee, you just used. So now you're playing a 234-yard par 4. That's what I try to emphasize to them. So that it's almost like they get to move up to there, and then, from there they can go on. And I think, if you go to anyone that's a 15 to 25 handicapper and you tell them you're going to play a 234-yard par 4, they're going to feel pretty good about themselves. They're going to feel like, you know what, I can handle that. I might even make a birdie. So, that's the way I approach the mentality. The second thing that I wanted to say, and I meant to say this in the first scenario, is I see so many people who have pretty good golf swings on the driving range, and then I go out with them on the golf course, and they make some of the worst decisions I've ever seen. And so what I really emphasize to the students is the most important decision that you will make on the golf course is the decision that you make after you hit a bad shot. So anytime you hit a bad shot, whether it's out of bounds, whether it's in the water, when you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. Usually it's dealing with trees and bunkers and things like that. And so what most people instinctively do when they're given that decision is they try to make it up, and I try to emphasize more along the conservative route and playing to their par, playing to the par that they have. And so, if they're a 36 handicapper, I tell them, you got 2 shots on this hole. So what if you hit a bad shot? Get it back in the fairway and you're all square. So I think that the decisions, and this is really what this conversation is more about than technique or things like that, is something that people never consider. And I really encourage the listeners out there to take a playing lesson. If you can take, don't just go to the driving range every single lesson and when you're taking lessons and do full swing lessons, or go to every single lesson and do short game lessons. go and take a playing lesson. It doesn't have to be 3 or 4 hour playing lesson. You can go. I do a lot of 1 hour playing lessons. We'll go out and I'll give them scenarios, and we'll hit some shots, and we'll work on whatever they're strong or whatever they're weak at or they're having trouble with. But I think that the people, and I think Clint was exactly right when he was talking about the short game. The average golfer, if they could walk along with a tour player and a caddy in a practice round, the average golfer would be amazed at how often the tour player plays away from pins. They do not go directly at every pin, and they have the ability to pull off any pin, any shot out there, but they don't do it because they're smart enough to know that, hey, that pin, if I go at that pin and I make just the slightest mistake, I'm going to make a double bogey. And so I'm going to play away from that pin. And then when they get in pins and on the par fives, they take advantage of the par fives. They get the ball on the green in the par threes. And, and when they get on the shorter par fours, that's where they take advantage and get their birdies. But the average golfer thinks that they've got to go at the pin on every single shot. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they can make.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of it is well, a couple of things. You're exactly right. Well said, by the way, John. Is I think with our professional players, there's a lot on the line. A putt, a bad shot can literally cost them tens of thousands, in some cases maybe even $100,000. And I know it's not all about the money, but the point is there's a consequence for their actions. So for them to be sort of a knee-jerk reaction every time they hit a bad shot without putting some thought and process into what their next shot is going to be, you're exactly right, could cost them, number one, the tournament, but could also cost them a substantial amount of money in potential purse money. So they're going to use the skills that they've learned through their journey, if you will, getting to PGA or LPGA Tour, whichever tour they're on, and they're going to use that experience. And you're right, they're not going to go at every pin. There might be certain scenarios where it's a very receptive pin, and they know that the dangers level is very low, and they're going to take chances on those holes. But where they know that there's a high risk and low reward, they're certainly not going to be aggressive on those particular holes. And you're right. I think it would be great. I wish that more of the tour professionals would go back to what we used to see a little bit on the Golf Channel, is where they would actually walk around and talk about what we're talking about here tonight through some of their cameos instead of just, and because if you remember going back a number of years ago, they used to do more of that. They used to get some of the pros who would come up and they would talk about what they would do in situations, much like what you're talking about here tonight. Well said, by the way, John. Clint, yours a little bit different. Again, always got to mix it up for you, my friend.
No problem.
This is a par 4 as well for you, 453 yards, a little bit shorter, but a strong dogleg left, needing a draw to get in a good position. Your player's normal ball flight, however, is a fade, making this hole not really fitting to their eye. Let's talk about some options that you might recommend for this player and why.
Okay. Before we get into that, let me throw this out to you. It's real simple. You're talking about the tour players. Mm-hmm. They call them tour players. They don't call them tour hitters.
Right.
These guys are players. They play the game. And they understand that hitting a golf ball is simply part of the game. It's not the whole game. And so they build their techniques and their ability around playing the game. And that's where we, as instructors, and I think John does this because he's saying exactly the same thing I'm saying, just with just a little bit different, terms. I'm a conservative player. I tell, hey, get it back in play, 100% success. That's conservative. But if we start talking and telling people, hey, you want to be a player, not a hitter, then we can start developing their ability and techniques around how they can play. And that's what we're talking about with the scenario. I got a guy that plays a fade all day. How far is it to the dog leg?
What did I say? It was 453. Probably about 210 to 220. Okay.
Then this guy right here, if he takes his driver and tries to hit a draw around corner, he's most likely not going to hit a good shot. Every now and then he might pull it off, but most likely he's going to hit a pull, and it's going to be in the tree. So we're going to try to avoid that shot. So, and if he also hits his driver and hits his normal shot pattern here, that once the ball reaches its kind of the apex of its flight and starts moving to the right, he's actually adding yards to his second shot because the ball now is moving away from the green, not towards it. So what I want him to be able to do is take his 3-wood or whatever he can hit, 210 to 215, and hit it down the middle, down the left to the middle of the fairway. Because he's going to hit that club probably straighter than he would his driver. He's not going to get as much of a fade or as much spin out of that particular club than he would his flatter-faced driver. So even if he hits his normal cut, he's not going to be losing yardage based on the cut for his second shot. So I'm going to want them to understand that when that ball's curving and moving, they're adding yards. So even if he hits his driver and blows it, kind of through the dogleg, he's still adding yards to his second shot. What I want him to do here is to try to get as short a second shot as he can, but he's got to clear the corner to have an open pass at it. So I'm going to get him to hit something that's got a little more loft on it, take some of the side spin off, get it to the dogleg, and hopefully get the shortest shot he can into the green.
Yeah, and I agree exactly with that scenario. You're exactly right. One of the reasons why I like this this particular scenario, Clinton, one of the reasons why I wanted to give this to you, because I knew essentially this was going to be your answer. But also it kind of brings into play what Nicklaus often talked about throughout his career, and particularly in some of the videos that he did when he made his video, Golf My Way. He talked about how when he was playing a hole that didn't fit his eye, he didn't try to adapt. In other words, he didn't try to hit a draw into a right to left hole if he wasn't confident. So he would play to his strengths, not the hole itself. And if he walked away with a par, great. If he walked away even with a bogey, he was still relatively happy because he knew that he was playing to his strengths and not to the hole. One of the big mistakes that I see, and again, the scenarios, I understand they're very generic and very general. It was just to give you guys a bit of a guideline. One of the things that I see on an example like this, John, you by all means jump in as well once I finish here, but is they'll try to cut the dog leg. They figure, well, I can probably get over those trees or whatever other obstacle may be there, so they're going to try and cut the dog leg. And going to your point, Clint, even if they manage to cut some of it off, again, with that left to right ball flight, they're still going to be adding yards to their second shot. So it's not really going to do them justice. And if they don't happen to execute the shot correctly, there's a multitude of scenarios that can happen. They can either hit a tree or pull it, as you said, into the woods. Now they've got a whole different scenario that they've got to deal with instead of being out in the fairway somewhere. So I like the idea that sometimes you have to ratchet it back a little bit and not necessarily pull out the driver, pull out a club, as you said, that's going to take a little bit of the spin off of it and keep you in play. Really the point, and John, I'm sure you would probably agree with this, is let's keep the ball in play wherever and whenever possible and not take unnecessary risk. And you're exactly right in your point earlier, John, a few moments ago that you said the purpose of this conversation tonight is not about technique. It's not about ball flight. It's not about any of these things that we talk about in the business. It's really about strategy and really about the mental process that a player has, he or she has out on the golf course. And you're exactly right. When you get out and you see how, if you've ever had the opportunity to play in a Pro-Am, for those of you listening to the show, you'll understand what the guys are talking about. If you watch how the pros sort of formulate their game plan throughout whatever scenario they may be faced with, they're not going at every pin. They're not hitting every drive 300-plus yards. They're using some strategy and course management throughout the course to give themselves the best opportunity to execute whatever plan they may have for that particular hole. And that's really what it's all about, and that's why I want to have this discussion tonight. So, guys, jump in with any further thoughts. John, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I do. I want to kind of allude on what Clint was talking about with the club selection to the dogleg, because I actually wrote about this in my book. I was fortunate enough to work with Bob Sowards, and I still work with him. In 2008, I mean, Bob was a club professional that qualified for the PGA Tour through Tour School. And we were in Greensboro at Sedgefield, and Bob, during the practice round, I flew down there and we were walking the course, and Bob told me Bob likes to cut the driver. He likes to play a fade with everything. And he said, I really don't like this course because it's a hooker's golf course. And I had a long talk with him about what we're talking about. I said, I said when the hole is going left to right, you can hit your driver all day long, but when that hole is going right to left, you're going to hit your 3-wood. And he said, even if the hole is 500 yards, which number 14 there is over 500 yards. And I said, yes. I said, yes, you hit your 3-wood. And that was his best tournament of the year. He came in 9th place. And we talked. Wow. I mean, he came back when he came back. I saw him a couple of days after the tournament because I followed him. I was down there pretty much the whole week, and he gave me a big hug, and we were talking. And he said, he just changed his mindset on how just because it's a long hole. If the hole doesn't fit your eye, you don't get to change the hole. You got to play the hole that's in front of you. Go with the shot. It was much easier for him to draw a 3-wood. He could hit his shot exactly like Clint was saying. He could start his ball, and he could work. I always want the ball to work with the hole. I never want the ball to work against the hole, especially on a tee shot at least. And so that was a very eye-opening for him. And since then, and this is not something I came up with. This is how Jack Nicklaus won 18 majors, is with that strategy. Yep. And that's what I tried to pass on to him. And I think it opened his eyes that he didn't have to hit driver on every single hole, and he had his best week ever. Yeah,
and that's a great story to share, and that just sort of really hammers the point home. And you're exactly right. That's how Jack Nicklaus won 18 major tournaments and a whole plethora of other tournaments along the way. And actually, there was a point in his career, and the name escapes me, but he actually obviously worked many years with Jack Grout, but there was another gentleman that came somewhere in Jack's earlier part of his career and tried to get him to draw the ball. And he tried that for, I think it was about a year, and just did terrible. Just couldn't put anything together. So he went back to what he knew and what he knew his strengths were, and of course the rest is history. And, the point I'm making, I guess, folks, is this. We're not here to teach you just how to hit the ball. Obviously, we want you to learn the fundamentals and learn the basics of the golf swing. But we're here to teach you how to play the game to get enjoyment out of it. And, one of the worst things I hear people saying all the time, I work with a lot of corporate types, and they come up and say, well, I want to hit the ball better. I'm not scoring very well. I'm not hitting very well. Teach me how to hit the ball better. And I can certainly do that. But it goes to your point, Clint, if they don't know how to play the game and use some strategy along the way, they can be the best ball striker that ever lived. But if they don't understand how to play the game and work through the different scenarios that we're talking about, then it's not going to matter. I mean, there's a lot of great hitters on the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour that don't win week in, week out, that don't win tournaments at all. So we know it's not a hitting factor. Am I right, Clint?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, obviously, part of the game is you have to hit the ball. I mean, obviously, and we all strive to be as good a ball striker as we can. The most important thing, I think John was alluding to in you as well, is we all have those tendencies that we do. We got people that cut the ball. We got people that hook the ball. So and with the new clubs and the ball, I mean, it's getting harder and harder. People hit it a little straighter than they used to. And so what you have to understand is when you make the swing you can make, whatever it is, and I think Nicklaus did this, I can repeat this body motion pretty easily. Yep. Trevino, the same way. I can make this body motion every time. So when I do this, what does the ball do? Does it hook? Does it fade? Does it go straight? And you have to then not worry about what the ball looks like, but can you make that body move more often than not, and then you have to play the results of that body motion. So that's what Nicklaus did. Hey, I can make my body do this every time, or close to, and when I do, the ball goes out there and goes left or right. So I'm going to play that shot every time I can. So I think as far as the ball striking, what I've always used to do is try to get a person, try to find what their body's capable of, and then work a technique into it if you can, be fundamentally sound with it. And then it's kind of that thing, you got to dance with who you brung to the dance. I mean, if that ball goes out there and cuts every time, man, guess what? There ain't nothing on the left side of this golf course you got to worry about. And we all know that when you got a one-way miss, you're a player.
Yeah. You're right.
You know, when you got a two-way miss, you're just trying to hit it. You know, so. But here's the other thing I want to throw out there. Now, John and I both, and Ted, you the same way. We want people to play conservative, keep it in play. But every now and then, I think you just leave the scorecard in the clubhouse and you take every risky shot you can take. You have to find out what you can do and what you can't do. So every now and then with an old water ball, you need to try to get it across that 240-yard drive. Maybe try to hook it around the corner. If nothing else, to prove to yourself you really can't do that. You know, to know what you can and what you can't do. And but don't keep score that day. Go out and just try to do the best you can with those risky shots just to see. I mean, you got to know how big a hole you need to hit it through, what your talent level is.
Yep.
And with the scenario you gave us, I think we would try to get those people to be more conservative on a regular basis.
Sure.
Every now and then, you know, it's like we talk a lot when we're playing, you know, what you going to do? So, well, my mama didn't send me out here to lay up today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a shot at it. You know, but some days you got to lay up, but some days you may just want to feel like see if you can do it or not. I think that's part of the excitement of the game. It's just to see what you really can do. You know, so. But you're absolutely correct. I think that if we can get people to understand that ball striking is important, but it's really not the entire game, then we're making some progress if we can do that.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked about this. Sorry, go ahead, John. Yep, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to – I'm sorry. On the flip side, another great way with playing lessons is to do the complete opposite of that. A lot of times – I'll take people, and, you know, especially we do this with our juniors a lot, is I'll take them up to the forward tees, to the first tee. And because then the first thing that comes out, oh, man, well, this hole's a lot easier now. And they start, but it's amazing when you move people up to the front tees, a lot of them, their scores don't go down. And
That's
so
right.
you can really emphasize to them, because what that allows them to do is especially if they're a better player, a 15 handicapper, if you move them up to the front tees, all of a sudden they're licking their chops. And so it really emphasizes to most of them that their short games are not good enough. And the reason that they're a 15 handicap or a 17 handicap or a 25 handicap is not the fact that they don't hit the ball far enough. It's the fact that they don't have a good enough short game from 30 yards and in, because they still got to get the ball in the hole, even if you move them up. So I think that's another way. And you can do that in a playing lesson, maybe on one hole. You know, you move them way up and say, all right, let's see how good you are now. And a lot of times they'll come away with the same score. Heck, I've done that before, and I'll go out and play and think it's going to be easy. And I'm standing there on the forward tees. I can't hit driver anymore, because if I do, I got nowhere to hit it. So I've got to hit it like a 5-iron off the tee, and I hit the 5-iron off the tee, and I'm right where I would be if I hit the driver from the black tee. So it really emphasizes the short game to your students, and I love doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's smart. In fact, I think really it would be a smart move for any teaching professional that not only might be listening tonight, but that's out there, and I'm sure many of them do it already, is, you know, especially early on with students, for their first maybe playing lesson, move them up. Forget what tees they normally play. move them up and start the playing lesson right there, as you said, John. I think that's a great way just to get them to, again, think a little bit differently and view the golf course from a different angle than what they might normally do, or different position. And then, maybe gradually work them back to wherever they normally hit from. But they'll certainly be a little bit, certainly much more confident that way as well. And it gives them pause to think and say, you know what, I have other options in playing my game. And, I don't always have to play from this tee. And I think just letting people see what some of their options are, really it boils down to this, is Nicklaus didn't, and Hogan and many of the other greats that have come along, didn't win golf tournaments based on their good shots. It's how they handled themselves after the bad shots. That's what makes a true champion. Right. And that goes with Nicklaus, that goes with Tiger Woods, and all the great ladies as well on the LPGA. It wasn't their good shots that won them the golf tournament. It's how they handled themselves on the golf course when the shots weren't as good. And we've seen that time and time again. And I wish, as you pointed out, John, earlier, I wish that, when we watch some of these televised tournaments, that we would get to see more of that. I mean, every once in a while they'll throw one in there if somebody hits or is playing a bad hole. But and I understand why they do it. But, again, it doesn't do the game justice if the amateurs are not seeing a true depiction of the game week in, week out. So that's why I would like to see more playing lessons back on the Golf Channel and other medium forums, where they're seeing more of the course strategy and not just everything perfect every time. Because as you can attest to, John and Clint and others out there that might have actually been out there and tested their mettle, it's not perfect every time. There's going to be more bad shots than there are good shots. Even Hogan said that in statements over the years. So speaking of testing metal, boy, you guys did a fantastic job tonight. I knew you would. And I want to thank you for doing a great job. John, I know you've been traveling around doing a lot of great things, talking to different folks around the country about a lot of things, and obviously a lot of book signings along the way. Give us an update on the book, what's been happening there, and anything that you want to share with the audience.
Well, thank you, Ted, for having me on the show. And Clint, as always, I enjoy being with you.
Yeah,
I learn something every time I listen to you as well. I have been traveling. I'm back in Ohio now. I'm going to be closing out the season up here teaching, but I've got a Bible study and some book signings in North Carolina in October. I just recently did a radio interview that was taped in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I am praying for those people because I don't know how they're doing right now. But they want me to come down, and there's going to be several churches, and they want me to come down and do some speaking and maybe put together a clinic. But who knows? We'll just have to see how all that works out. But I'll be saying a prayer for them. But the book is done very well. But I truly miss teaching. I had a fantastic conversation today with a guy from the FCA and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, is where I'm going to hopefully be speaking there as well with that group, and I think my book would fit along in that forum very well. But if people, the listeners out there, would like to information on the book, or if they would like to see any of my golf videos, my website is johndeckergolf.com, and they can go on there. I just put up another video today. I just did a video today, which was fun to do. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I'm on all those social media platforms. And again, I spell my name Jon, so it's johndeckergolf.com. Check out the website and the videos. Just go into the library section, and they'll prompt you to the videos.
Perfect. Well, John, thank you as always for coming on the Coach's Corner panel and being a guest on Golf Talk Live. I enjoy having you as well. You've been great panelist.
Can I say one other thing real quick? Chris Czaja, your guest coming up. I went to East Carolina with Chris. Chris was a senior my freshman year, and I actually got cut from the golf team, and he actually gave me lessons before. He helped me out there when I was struggling as a freshman. So I just tell Chris I said hello.
I will certainly do that, my friend. Clint, go ahead. Let the folks know where they can reach you or how they can get a hold of you, and anything else that you want to share as well.
Well, obviously, I'd like to thank John. I mean, we all learned, I learned a lot last week. I mean, from our conversation, and we always do. But little new information, they can get anything that they, information about me or what we're doing for videos and things at upstategolfmarketing.com. If they go to that website, everything's right there for them, okay? About me, Mike Lawrence, Todd Ellison, Scott Womble, our entire, R3 and TGM Golf Academy staff, all that information is right there. And they're obviously a great wealth of information. I think that Todd is the youngest in that group, and I think he's 47 or 48, where the rest of us are in our 50s and 60s. So we kind of, kind of like that farmer's commercial. We've seen that, so we kind of know what to do about it. But it's always fun to be on the show. I enjoy it. Do it anytime you ask me to, and hopefully people begin to understand it's about playing versus hitting, and we get more people out playing golf.
Well, I think we moved that needle just a little bit further along with today's Coach's Corner, guys. Again, thank you always for helping out. I appreciate you giving of your time, and I look forward to both of you joining me again on a future one. So God bless to both of you, and have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next time on Coach's Corner.
All right, Ted. John, have a good weekend.
You as well. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, see you.
All right, that was the Coach's Corner panel, John Decker and Clint Wright. Great job tonight. And as John had alluded to, a little intro of a buddy of his is going to be a guest coming up here in just a moment. But let me just tell you a little bit about Chris Czaja. He's a PGA professional, and he was also the PGA Teacher of the Year for South Florida section and the Southeast Florida PGA Teacher of the Year as well, originally from Greenwich, Connecticut, but he relocated to Florida in 1990, and for the past 23 years has been living the dream, as he says, at Boca West Country Club as their head golf pro. He was captivated with the sport since childhood, watching some of his favorite pros like Nicklaus, Trevino, and Stuart. His personal instruction, of course, was taught by Billy Mitchell and Jim McClean. And from student to master, Chris received the coveted award, as I mentioned, as South Florida 2010 PGA Teacher of the Year. And he was also named the 2009 Southeast Chapter PGA Teacher of the Year. As a graduate of, as John Decker had just mentioned, of East Carolina University, he's also been one of the top playing PGA professionals in South Florida. As a PGA professional, Chris won numerous chapter and section PGA events and played in 3 National Club professional championships, and was a member of 3 South Florida section PGA Cup teams. And besides golf, he also spends a significant amount of his time involved in a number of national and community charities. So always glad to give back. And without any further ado, let me welcome my very special guest this evening, PGA professional Chris Czaja. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on with you. Congratulations on the show. It's really great, and I appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to talking golf with you. And as a PGA pro, we do a lot of. We spend most of our time during the days playing and teaching golf and talking golf with our members and guests. So it's always a lot of fun to carry that into the evening and spend time with you and continue the conversation on this great game.
Perfect. Well, Chris, let me just first off say I don't know when you jumped on board here, if you heard this or not, but John Decker wanted me to reach out and say hello. Of course, you both knew one another when you were back in university. I think he said you were a senior at the time when he was first attending, so you've got some commonality there. Chris, I want to just jump back just a little bit. I know we talked a little bit about what really sort of brought the interest of the game or the sport to you as a young child. Of course, much like myself, watching great players like Nicklaus and Trevino and many of the other greats, of course, the late Arnold Palmer. But tell us a little bit about your background. What were some of your earliest memories of golf?
Well, I was very fortunate to grow up in Greenwich, Connecticut. My father was a headmaster, and he working a job as a headmaster in Greenwich, Connecticut. So we moved there, and I actually grew up right on Ennis Arden Golf Club. So at an early age, I started in the game and as a caddy, and was exposed to it early on. And in a really great golf area, Greenwich, Connecticut, there were 9 private clubs and a public course. So that was my first exposure to the game. It was literally in my backyard, the 15th hole of Ennis Arden Golf Club. So from there,
wow,
I played in junior high and high school, state champion twice at Greenwich High School. We had a very strong team, and really what got my interest also as far as professional golf was the Westchester Classic. I used to watch that every year and follow Ben Crenshaw and Johnny Miller and Trevino and the guys, and that was really one of the things that inspired me to really pursue the game and try to be the best that I could be. And as a junior, when I was runner-up in the Metropolitan Junior Championship, I kind of figured maybe I had a shot at this to play collegiately, and had a very good amateur career up in the Met section, which was the MGA. Did such a great job with junior golf and tournaments that I really did quite well as a junior, and then I went on with a full scholarship at East Carolina and played Division I golf there, which was fantastic. And that's again how I
now,
met John.
How old were you roughly when you first started swinging a golf club? What age range were you in?
I think I was about 10 years old, 10, 11 when I started, and then when I was 13, 14, I started caddying every summer. And my parents didn't golf, but from a caddy in a junior golfer, that was really my exposure to the game.
Do you think that?
Billy Mitchell,
and obviously there are. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was saying Billy Mitchell was the PGA, the head professional at Ennis Arden Golf Club, and he really did quite a bit to help me out with the game and teach me the game, and that was really my first coaching that I received. It's informal coaching, but it was very good. He was very good with the fundamentals of golf, and I really helped my game quite a bit as a junior.
It's interesting because there's so many different stories that we hear, and obviously doing this program allows me the opportunity to talk with so many great professionals like yourself, Chris, and there's just such a variety of stories. You started fairly young, about 10 years old, in that range when you first sort of picked up a golf club and started playing. Some started maybe a little bit earlier. Some maybe didn't start until a little bit later. So there's a pretty broad range, if you will, of how people got introduced to the game. But one of the things that always interests me, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this, is when we watched some of these greats in earlier times, like a Nicklaus or Trevino and many of the others that were out there, and Johnny Millers and that, there was just sort of an aura about them. Watching them, how they thought their way around the golf course, how they handled certain situations. We used to see a lot more of that than what we do now. Of course, everything, with editing and so forth. We don't, as we talked about in the panel discussion, the guys and I just a few minutes ago, you don't get to see a lot of the bad shots. We just sort of see what the television screen allows us to see. But we got to see a lot of that earlier on. What were some of your memories or highlights that you can recall as a younger person watching some of the greats play this game that now you're a part of?
Well, there was a few experiences I had as a junior. I was invited to participate in a Pro-Am, the Westchester Classic Pro-Am. They selected the top male and the top female junior players from the area, and they gave us a spot on the Pro-Am. And I remember meeting Lon Hinkle and some of the players at that tournament, and going from there and actually playing with the touring pros, it kind of piqued my interest in the game. But I can remember, vividly just going to the tournament and the qualifiers for the U.S. Open or caddying and some of these things as a kid, and being around the pros and really found it quite interesting. But I used to, when I would watch a tournament, I would go to the Westchester Classic for several days, and I would literally walk 18 holes following Ben Crenshaw or Johnny Miller, one of my favorite pros, and just watch them the whole 18. And I recognized early on that not every shot was perfect. They hit errant golf shots. They missed putts, but they still scored, and they were able to play the game and score low even with bad shots. So I recognized that it wasn't a game of perfect. It wasn't like we had to hit perfect golf shots to score Seve Ballesteros. I mean, the way he played. And I kind of took that in, and I had the ability early on as a junior to shoot low scores, and I didn't have a lot of formal instruction, as I said, but I had a very good junior career. As a non-member of any private country club, I was still able to get my game at that level, but I always had the scoring part in my mind. How do I just get the ball in the hole? How do I, shoot the lowest score? And my form was good, but I learned early on how to be creative around the greens. I spent a lot of time on the short game. I think that really helped me just to keep that in focus, that it's all about score. It's not what it looks like. The number is the number, and it doesn't matter how you do it. But I think that really helped me with the scoring. And I find a lot of golfers have the trouble scoring. They're trying to be so perfect with their golf swings that they can't shoot a low score. And by following, let's say, pro, like Ben Crenshaw, when you watch him when he was in his prime, he'd spray the ball around the golf course, but he'd shoot 68, with his short game and just being able to score.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's so true. And that was, a lot of my early memories too. I watched, some of the great players. One of my favorite players as well to watch, believe it or not, was Tom Kite. He just certainly was a straight ball hitter, but he just really knew how to work his short game. He would get into whatever situation he might get into, and he knew how to recover very well. And he was one of my earliest memories of a player that started playing with really 3 or 4 wedges in his golf bag. He was one of the first players. Now, there certainly may have been others, but he was one of the first ones I remember hearing about on the PGA Tour. When they would talk about it, and they say, well, how many wedges have you got in your bag? And he'd say, well, I got 4. And, at that time, people were dumbfounded. Well, why would you carry 4 wedges? You don't need 4 wedges. But he obviously found a purpose for them, and it worked for his game. Right. I want to move up to collegiate golf. Yeah, I want to move up to collegiate golf, Chris, in just a second. But I want to ask you something first, just based on what you just talked about.
Sure.
Do you think that a lot of our amateur golfers out there, and I guess this has been a trend for the last 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years, have put more emphasis on that picture-perfect swing and not really learning how to play the game as you did, obviously, earlier on?
Oh, I think without a doubt that was the trend. But what I'm seeing today, though, with some of the younger players that are on the tour, it's going the other way now. We're seeing players with, let's just say, non-conforming or very unique styles of play. John Rahm, or even Jordan Spieth with his move through the ball. It doesn't look like Adam Scott or Tiger. So I think we're seeing a little more creativity being allowed with the golf swing. Justin Thomas and Dustin Johnson, the way he swings it to the top and the way he goes at it, which is a good thing in my opinion. It's allowing players to see that you can be super successful and be at the top of your game with your own style, and that's so important. But for a while there, there was a time period where everyone wanted to swing like Nick Faldo, and everybody's looking at Tiger swing as the model swing, and that's changing. So it's kind of coming around the other way, which I think is good. Good for the game. It's good for juniors. There's more than one way to get it done, and that's something we need to recognize, especially from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah, well said. You're exactly right. And I was one of those, watching players like Nick Faldo. Certainly he has a phenomenal golf swing. He rebuilt his swing from an earlier time. He obviously struggled early on in the European Tour. They used to actually nickname him El Foldo because he just couldn't seem to put it together. Rebuilt his swing, but it worked for him. And the problem that I've seen over, as a teacher professional as well, is there was a generation of folks out there that just thought, okay, this is what I've got to do to be successful out on the golf course. I've got to rebuild my swing. It's got to be perfect. It's got to, this has to be in this slot. That has to be on, this move over here. And it just added to the frustration. I want to talk about something else. I mentioned we're going to get into collegiate golf, and this is something, too, that is not easy for a lot of players out there. You played collegiate golf, obviously, at a high level, Division I, but golf is traditionally an individual game. Was it hard for you to adjust to now playing on a team? And share some of your journey during the stage of your golfing career as a collegiate player. What were some of the things that you learned as a collegiate player that maybe helped you move to the next phase?
Well, definitely my experience at East Carolina really helped my game quite a bit. And as far as the team play, coming from being on a 2-time state championship team in Connecticut, I had a good feel for team golf. And when I went to East Carolina, my first year, I was playing every tournament as a freshman. And, what I always initially, just in all honesty, the first few years, I was so concerned with being one of the top, either the number 1 or number 2 player to keep my scholarship. That was the big motivating factor, was to play well enough to be the top guy because I was on a full scholarship, and that was always in the back of my mind. So from the team aspect, we had a really good team, but we were playing against some of the best teams in the country. So it was great experience, and I didn't really have a hard time adjusting to it, but being that golf is such an individual game, I was always focused on my game and trying to get the most out of that, because I didn't want to lose my spot on the top 5 players, which I didn't. But that was always kind of a driving factor, which was a good thing because it helped me to work on my game. But I was always comfortable in the team situation and with my teammates. And what I also discovered, interestingly, through my collegiate career was I had the ability to help other players with their games as far as from a coaching standpoint. I was able to, see what they were doing and give them suggestions just as we were practicing, on a daily basis or with the short game. So I had a real knack for helping other players, which I always noticed as well.
Well, and that's something that is important if you're going to play on a team as well. I mean, you're now there to be, and I hate to use this term, but sort of almost like a cheerleader for your fellow players on the team, but also others that you're coming across. And you obviously developed an eye as a coach, not just as a player, but as a coach as well, and which obviously prompted you a little bit later on to make that move. And it's interesting because, you watch things like the Ryder Cup and even the President's Cup, and, there's a lot of players that fit very well in a team format. Even though, week in, week out on the PGA Tour, they're playing as individuals, they're able to step up and work in that team environment. But a player like Tiger Woods, as an individual, giving you a good example, had a terrible Ryder Cup, history, if you will, was not able to play as well in a team.
Yeah, like when you compare it to his individual record, you're exactly right.
Sure. Yeah, so, some folks out there just don't have that ability to navigate in both sense, and you obviously had the ability to do both. In addition to a great collegiate career, Chris, you obviously have, as I mentioned out earlier in the opening credits, you've received some great acknowledgments as a professional, PGA Teacher of the Year in South Florida.
Well, thank you.
Plus you won some sectional tournaments as well. You won some sectional tournaments as a PGA professional. What did you learn as a player that's helped you in the teaching side of your career? What did you learn while you're out in the golf course playing competitively that's now transitioned into your teaching side? What nuggets, if you will, have you brought with you from your playing career?
Well, early on, and again, I was very fortunate to be given instruction by a top pro, the late William A. Mitchell, where he instilled in me the value of the fundamentals, and it was then to Jim McClean and some of the other pros that I was fortunate to receive some advice from. It was always the trying to be perfect with the basic fundamentals of the swing, and then you really get the feel for the cause and effect of what's causing things to happen, good or bad, but also you get a good feel for what really holds up under pressure. And I knew early on, just for example, on the first tee of any tournament, I always had no problem hitting a good shot right off the first tee, even if I was nervous. And then I realized, well, my swing fundamentals are obviously really good because I'm really nervous, but I'm still hitting the ball really well. And that connected with me early on, that I knew what was holding up and what worked under the gun. So, as a player, you learn what works, then you can then transfer that to the student because you have that experience. And some players might have what appears to be a really good swing, but they don't really have a total mastery of the fundamentals, and it doesn't hold up under the gun. And golfers that have gotten to a certain level and have some playing will realize what works and what doesn't. And so it really kind of channels your focus on what you need to be teaching when you're working with players, because without certain fundamentals, things can fall apart real fast. So, I was fortunate to be taught correctly, and that's one of the pillars of my teaching philosophy, is to try to work that into the players I'm working with on the lesson tee on a daily basis.
What do you enjoy most? I guess there is no perfect day, but if you could paint a perfect day out on the lesson tee, what would that be? What would that entail for you?
A perfect day on the lesson tee? Well, it's hard to say. We enjoy what we do, and I look forward to going into the club every single day. It's really a pleasure working with the members and guests and the students I work with that come in to see me. It's very rewarding. So, I think a perfect day is getting a chance to help players at different skill levels, and just seeing that your efforts are noticed and that people are enjoying the game more. And I think that's the biggest thing we get out of it. And
Great
of course,
answer.
good weather.
I love that.
When we have
Sure. That's right. Yeah, it doesn't get any better than South Florida. Just to remind everybody, of course, he's the head golf pro at Boca West Country Club in South Florida. We'll give you a little more particulars a little bit later on in the broadcast. But great answer, Chris. I like that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Here's here's something that I'm sure that you have had to deal with as a player, and obviously have to deal with now as a teacher professional and a coach. But a lot of amateurs have a hard time with setting goals. You had to, I'm sure, set goals as a player in order to be successful out in the golf course. Walk us through maybe some of the steps that you take to help some of your students or members at the club in not only setting goals, but helping them to execute a game plan.
Well, when it comes to goals, I look at the students that come to see me, whether, the members, their guests. I coach players from all over the country, and actually from different countries will come in to see me, which is great. Boca West is a large facility. There's 4 courses. It's the number 1 rated club in Florida. We have an amazing facility there, and it's really. I hope you can come down to Boca sometime, and I'll show you around, and we'll get to play the courses. But it's a fantastic facility with. It's no surprise to me that it's rated number 1 in the state of Florida and probably the country. It's an amazing place. And when golfers come to see me, there's always a little bit of pressure.
Sure.
Because if someone's coming way out of the way to see me, that's a compliment, but it's also a little bit of pressure. Just like when the chairman of the board comes out for a lesson, that's pressure, or the golf chairman, or a new member at the club. It's always a little different situation that we're dealing with, but that makes it fun. But I look at the goal setting. If you have a new golfer, compare that to an intermediate player and an advanced player. At some point early on in the first lesson, I need to get a feel for what their goals are. Why are they coming to see me? What are they looking to get from this? For example, a new golfer, brand new golfer, their goal may be just to get the ball moving, get it airborne. Whereas, an advanced golfer or an aspiring player or a professional golfer, when I work with pros, their goals are totally different. So it really depends on the level of the player. But at some point in the first lesson, I'm going to get a good idea of what their goals are, and then I can communicate to them what the best plan of attack is to achieve those goals. Sometimes
right.
if it's a new golfer, I may have to kind of lead them down that path and say, here's a realistic goal for you, today or tomorrow, and kind of walk them through that. Whereas the more skillful player is already going to have an idea of what their goals are, and then I need to create a lesson program that's a little more detailed for that player. The majority of golfers that we deal with would fall more into the intermediate, sophisticated player who has been playing for a while, and their goal might just be to improve one segment of their game. There's their short game or their driving. So
right.
I think the skill levels is something we have to take into consideration.
Well, and you touched on something that I was actually going to be my next question in part of this, and that is ensuring that the goals, regardless of what level, but particularly for some of our high handicap golfers out there or new golfers to the game, that their goals that they're setting are realistic.
Right.
I'm sure you've experienced this many, many times over the years, how many times somebody comes with very unrealistic goals and just are not really looking honestly at themselves. And, it's sort of a balancing act as a professional for us to say, well, no offense, but you're not going to make it on the PGA Tour anytime soon.
Right.
And we often see that with a lot of junior, parents bring their juniors and say, well, he's going to be the next Tiger Woods or he's going to be the next Jack Nicklaus or whoever. And little Johnny over here just is far furthest away that you could ever. And I know you've seen it. I mean, we laugh about it, but I know you've seen it. What do you do
right.
to on one hand, not offend the individual that you're dealing with or parents if it's in the case of a junior, but ensure that they're being truthful to themselves? What sort of help me through the conversation that you might have with them to initiate that?
Well, with let's just take the example of the country club player who's not very athletic, who's expecting to hit the ball, 250 plus yards. I might explain to them, okay, let's take me out to the baseball stadium, and we'll go down to the Marlins Stadium and put me on the mound, and I'm a good athlete, and give me a baseball and see if I can throw it at 95 miles an hour. I could have all the best coaching in the world. I'll never get to throw a fastball, at that speed, at that velocity. So it's not realistic for me to go down to the Marlins Stadium and expect to pitch as fast as the major league pitcher's throwing the ball. It's just like the student coming to me saying, hey, I want to hit a golf ball as far as you hit the golf ball, or what I see, Dustin Johnson doing. I said, well, you can never get to that speed. It's just physically not going to happen. Just like I'm not going to be able to serve a tennis ball like Rafael Nadal. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So when they start to look at it that way, they start to go, okay, well, you're the major league, pitcher, and I'm not going to be able to do what you do. So they kind of then relate, okay, I see what you're saying. In golf, I maybe, more realistically look to hit a drive 200 yards, not 250. So that, when they also get an idea of the physics involved in it, what creates the energy that propels the golf ball and that projectile 250 plus yards. Well, if they see what their swing speed is, they can then kind of get an idea that their swing speed will never be 115, 20 miles an hour. So it can't get the ball to go that far. So, that's one way to do it. When it comes to the junior golfer with the parents, it's a little different situation because obviously the junior golfer has a lot of time on their side to develop their skills. But the conversation might be more towards the time factor. Okay, well, if little Billy wants to get to this level with his golf, he's going to need to work on his game this much and have some coaching and give it some time because it's a process. So that discussion would take place. And I also like to have the parents involved as far as encouraging the junior, but let them know early on that from the coaching standpoint that, when it comes to the lessons and the information that's going to be given out, they're best listening to someone like myself and have the parents more in the role of encouraging the player. But, junior golfers, I've seen players that, one junior golfer I worked with recently, a high school player, his best score was 105 in a tournament. And, after working with this junior for a year, he got his best tournament score down to 77 in 1 year. So that junior improved quite a bit. So when I first started working with him, if someone was observing how this junior was playing, they would say he's got no chance at collegiate golf.
Right.
Whereas now in his senior year, he can shoot in the 70s. Well, he, with a little more improvement, he may make a golf team collegiately. So it can happen. Depending on the junior, things can happen pretty quickly, especially when players are coached properly. The improvement can be pretty astounding. But it just depends on their motivation, if they have time to practice the right way. But I would never tell a junior golfer or their parents, hey, your son or daughter will never make that, because we don't know this. It's just the conversation's got to be a little more towards this is what it's going to take. If you do this and you put the time into it, you can see these improvements, and who knows. There's plenty of stories of guys that really weren't standouts in high school, and then they end up having a pro career. So we don't really know what's going to happen in the future, because the best we can do is lead them in the right direction and show them the right stuff.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I think really one of the things that, going back to some of the juniors that you're talking about, the conversation really has to start with the junior. I mean, it's great that the parents are bringing them to the door, and it's like the old leading the horse to water. But at the same time, you can't make the student drink the water if it's not what they want. If it's their parents' ideas or dreams or goals, then, and this is one of the things that I think that the dangers that happens in junior golf is a lot of times, over rambunctious parents decide that they want to have little Johnny, get a scholarship at the university. So they figure, well, the golf team is the way to go. So they shuffle them into lessons and all this kind of stuff. So obviously it's important that you talk to the students as well, away from the parents, and say, is this something that you really want? Is this something that is sort of a seed, if you will, that's grown inside of you that you have some passion about, or is this really something that you're doing, to appeal, which obviously every kid does to a certain degree, but to appease your parents, because there's no worse misery for a child, and even for a coach or instructor, to know that you've got a student that you're working with that really doesn't want to be there. Would that be pretty accurate?
I think, Ted, you're real accurate with that, because look at the time we spent on ranges as junior golfers, hitting balls, beating balls, putting time in on the short game area, putting greens. I mean, hour after hour. And if you don't enjoy it, if you don't have those aspirations, it's not going to happen. So you're 100% right, Ted. The junior, to really excel, needs to see success. They need to have success at whatever level. If they realize that they're good at it, they're going to keep pursuing it, and that's where kind of the passion comes in. Someone can be passionate about it, but not really be good at it, and there's kind of a difference there. So I think when juniors see that they can do it and do it well, and they know that they're good at it, it makes it a little easier to put the time in to really develop the skills to further the career. I think
and you're exactly right. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying when the junior or the tournament player sees some success, that's a big motivating factor. When they can look and say, okay, I'm good at this, and that's going to help me put the time into it. Just being passionate about it doesn't necessarily.
Right, and lots of kids might come with some passion in the beginning, but when they realize, the hard work that's going to have to be, going in behind it in order to get to that level, suddenly that passion drifts and reality sets in. So this is why that conversation as to, and really the most important question is why are you here? Why do you want to play? What is it about golf? And that conversation really has to take place first, and you're exactly right. Chris, I want to move on to a topic that I think is important to discuss, and I'm just curious as to your thoughts and views, and again, obviously there's no right or wrong answers here, but there's been here for the last at least a decade or more, there is really a new way of reaching students, everything from online video lessons to social media, et cetera. And I'm going to throw in here, because I've talked about it many times on the show, especially some of the earlier shows, a lot of the technology that's available out there, both hardware and software, in game improvement and so forth. What are some of the pros and cons that you found using some of the tools that are out there? Obviously, I think there's pros and cons. What were some of the positives, I guess, and what were some of the things that I won't say bother you, but sometimes you have concerns about that maybe the industry is relying too much on certain things?
Well, Ted, the technology is great for two things primarily. To kind of spike the interest of the student early on. Let's say a younger player is coming out and they see the technology and they see the TrackMan, they see the launch monitors,
yep.
they go on simulators or they look at the app on their phone or whatever it is. They find that's interesting and it gets them interested in golf, and to put some time into it, that's a positive. From a coaching standpoint, like when I have access to technology like we have at the club and we have really good, the technology, I use that just like a doctor would use it with my students. But I don't use it with every single student.
Right.
From an expert's opinion, when you look at the technology and that can help you translate something to the student, you kind of cherry pick what information you want to give to the student, or show them certain things but don't show them other things. Having that available is very good to then help the student. But the student, can benefit from technology because it can make it more interesting, gets the juices flowing, and they want to get out there and play golf. Hey, that's great. Just like I'm a Cobra Puma brand ambassador, and the F7 Plus driver I have has the computer chip and the grip, and you can link it with the app on your phone, and it charts every drive. Hey, that's great. Having that on your equipment, just like they're putting it on tennis rackets now, they're having the same technology on a tennis racket that's going to be able to tell a tennis player how they're serving, the spin of the ball, and so on a tennis racket. I mean, who would believe? So the technology is great there. It can be devastatingly bad for players if they don't know how to interpret the information when they just start looking at all that stuff and they watch every YouTube video and they try to get a different lesson from someplace somewhere and send their video into to be. I did a lot of video analysis with SwingFix, which is a great platform, but I had a lot of SwingFix students come to work with me in person, and the experience they had with me in person was better than the video lesson just from watching, a couple of swings. I could give them an analysis, but working with them in person is so. I love technology. I want to know what's out there and what the current technology is, but I also know that it's a double-edged sword. It can also really hurt a student because they don't know how to interpret the information correctly. It's just like someone going to a doctor. They have to recognize the doctor knows way more about this stuff than they do, and they just need to rely on what the doctor tells them. And from an instructor standpoint, we need to kind of take the rudder of the ship and guide it. Don't let the student say, hey, I'm going to just spend the whole hour analyzing my swing to death based on the technology. Now, again, Ted, I think the technology is good, just like new equipment gets the juices flowing when you get a new set of clubs. If it gets people out there on the golf course, I'm all for it, get them interested in it. But I also think we need to educate the general public on how to use that information and when not to even look at it. To enjoy the game, we got to hit the golf ball and hit good golf shots, and that's just not going to be found from analyzing a golf swing to death based on a swing app.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think, and this is the conversation that we've had both here as a general rule with some of the guests that I've had on the show, and obviously we've talked about it in a little bit more length on a number of shows actually on Coach's Corner. And one of the things that, and I guess the dangers that I found, and unfortunately I think the industry, even though there is new technology coming out and even better technology coming out, I think the industry as a whole is recognizing that there has to be a balance. It's great to get the stats, it's great to have the figures and see all the video and so forth, but then, it has to be interpreted and has to be even some of it withheld a little bit if it's going to be overburdening the student. I'll give you an example.
Correct.
You've got the student on flight scope. You're getting all the facts and the figures. Then you're analyzing the videos all day long. You're throwing out all these different numbers at them all the time. To the average student, and I'm certainly not talking to professionals. I mean, they're a different kettle of fish, if you will. But for a lot of the students out there, it's very overwhelming, and it's actually turned off a lot of people. It's exciting, like you said, gets the juices flowing in the beginning, but then after a while, their eyes are rolling in the back of their head like a slot machine because they don't understand. So there has to be a balancing act between the right. I mean, I'm right. Between the coach and teacher and the student. They have to understand that there is a time and a place when this information is going to serve them right, and then there's going to be a time and a place where it's not necessary. And that's really up to us as the coaches and teacher professionals to sort of find that balancing act.
You're exactly right, Ted.
And the same thing.
What I was going to say is early on in my that's kind of relating to that is that early on in my teaching career, I learned early on that great teachers very often didn't do a lot of talking in the golf lessons, but they would have a lot of success with their students because what they said at the right time or how they worded it or what they showed the student, let's say, really got it across, and the student made more progress than the student that went for a lesson and the pro talked nonstop for an hour straight, giving him information, and then the student leaves going, "Wow, I talked a lot, but I really didn't learn anything or didn't get any better." Or information has to be accurate, and that's what students need. And I think you're right in that if it's too much, it's just information overload. Just like what we can pull up on the phone. And you look at how to hit a pitch shot on YouTube, and there's thousands of videos from everybody on how to hit a pitch shot. Well, I would rather have the students spend time out there at a short range and learn the correct way to do it and get a feel for it and be able to pull off that shot more so than just trying to learn it by watching a video or analyzing numbers at the superstore in an indoor computer. That's not the best way to learn golf. And the bottom line with players is they want to get an idea of how to get the golf ball doing what they want it to do and enjoy the game. And technology is great if it's used the right way. So I think that you're 100% correct. And it's good to have it, and we don't want to turn people off from the game. We want more people enjoying the game. And one of the things I enjoy most about teaching is having the students say, "Hey, I really understand what you're saying now, and I really feel like I know what I'm doing when I'm swinging." Let's say it's an intermediate player, and they say, "I finally get how and why the ball is doing what it's doing." And, that's a good feeling. And we take it for granted when we play. We just hit shots and we know for the most part, we know where the ball's going. But for the recreational player, when they start to discover some of these things, and again, getting back to how important the fundamentals are, these are based on certain fundamentals. When they get a handle of those things, then they kind of get what really makes the game fun. And just having the latest equipment with, all the data that's out there doesn't mean they're going to enjoy the game more. Over time, they're going to get frustrated. The guy who started PXG, Parsons, he got tired of spending $250,000 on equipment every year, so he started his own company and trying to put out, what he thinks is the best equipment out there. Well, he had the means to buy all that equipment, but he was getting frustrated that he was trying all these clubs and he didn't, get to where he wanted to go. Well, golfers can buy all the equipment they want and they can get all the technology. That doesn't mean they're going to play a better game. Just like with equipment now, there's kind of the trend towards more of a traditional golf club than something, not everybody needs a super game improvement club nowadays. They're starting to recognize, well, maybe that's not for everybody because, people are different. So it's kind of like a cyclical movement with equipment that, I see more people going to a bladed club right now than, wasn't that long ago where everybody thought they needed the most perimeter weight they could possibly get on a golf club. And we're kind of seeing that go the other way. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I obviously boil that down to effective marketing. I mean, there's no doubt this was a direction that the industry was taking, and it was obviously led a lot by the manufacturing sector, really to what they thought was going to help a lot of the students, and it certainly has for many out there. But I think it's like anything; you have to find a balancing act, and I think one of the dangers in any industry, doesn't necessarily be just the golf industry, but any industry, is that sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for. If you try to move a trend or create a trend in one direction, it might serve you well for a period of time, but it all boils down to the basics. You can be, and we talked about this in the Coach's Corner earlier tonight, you can be the best ball striker on the planet, but if you don't understand how to play the game and navigate around the golf course, it's not going to add up to a hill of beans, because there's a lot of great ball strikers on all of the tours, but not everybody's winning each and every week. So why is that? And that's because some people know how to play to their advantage better than, say, the other person. And that's really what it's about.
You're 100% right. Look at some of the players that are winning, and you look at the way they're swinging, and you go, wow, this is not what the textbook says, or they're putting a certain way. Hey, that's not what the textbook says, but they're winning. They know how to score. And I think, the guys like Ricky Fowler, he has really good form. But when you look at Ricky, Sergio, and Justin Rose and these guys, they really know how to score. They have that ability to just get the ball in the hole. And they're long, but they're not the longest hitters on the tour, but they're really, getting the job done because of their ability to score in the short game. So I think we need to communicate that to students. It's not just a power game. Distance is important, but when you're playing, you got to know how to score, and that's where you got to, that's where the evaluation comes in. I spend a lot more time evaluating an advanced player than I would a brand new golfer. It doesn't take that much to evaluate someone who's never played before. You know exactly what you're going to show them. Someone comes out to the lesson tee who's already on the PGA Tour, or top collegiate player. They want to get and fine tune their game. As a pro, we have to do a little more in-depth analysis and evaluate all areas of their game to try to get them to improve whatever area they need. So that's where the students are different. It's almost the exact opposite. When you look at equipment, what type of little tweaks to equipment could make a difference for a pro. 1 degree on a driver. Compare that to someone who's never really played, or just out there, a high school kid taking a driver in their hand. It doesn't really matter what the loft is on the driver right now, because they're at that level. So things kind of go in reverse.
Yeah, well said. And you're exactly right, Chris. We've talked about this many, many times on the program over the years, and it boils down to really, what a player is willing to do while they're out on the golf course. They're going to look at the situation, they're going to look at the scenario, and they need to have the ability to be creative while they're out there. And you can line them up with the best equipment and the best golf balls and even the best instruction. But once they're out in the golf course, they're on their own. They can certainly draw from their experiences and the information they've learned, but essentially they're on their own. And, this is where a little ingenuity comes in, and this is why you see some players stand out more so than others. And, I'm like you. I love the equipment. I think that the technology is interesting, and even social media. I think it's great to have a lot of viewpoints and a lot of opinions out there, but there's some dangers too, and I think we have to be cognizant of both sides of the coin, if you will. Chris, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for, I hate to say this, but our time is actually coming to an end.
Wow,
it's
it went
been an
by
interesting,
fast. That was...
well, hey, we're talking about something we both enjoy, and it's you get two guys together talking about something they love and passionate about. It's amazing how time flies. It's when you do the stuff you don't like that it seems to drag on forever. So I think that speaks volumes. But Chris, I want to take this opportunity to a couple things. First off, I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's been an honor and a pleasure. having you here as well. And as I mentioned to you earlier today, when you reached out after the show, I'm going to send you the Coach's Corner updated schedule so you can see what dates are available and so forth. And I think you'd be a great asset to the Coach's Corner team. There's quite a few of them now from all over the United States on the panel discussions. I think you'd have some great thoughts and input, so please feel free to join there. But I want to give you just a couple of minutes here if you want to let the folks know if they want to reach out to you, how they can get in touch with you or how they can learn more about what you have to offer here in this great game.
Well, thank you, Ted, very much for the invite, and I look forward to doing the Coach's Corner. It's been a lot of fun, and congrats on the show again. The best way for people to contact me is they can call 833 PGA Golf. That will give them a direct line to me at 833 PGA Golf. They can go to my website, which is ChristianCzaja.com. So the spelling is ChRistian, and my last name is CZAJA.com. Or they can call Boca West Country Club. I'm here in Boca year-round, and we have a fantastic facility, 4 courses, and I'm easy to reach there, and I'm always accessible. I'm on LinkedIn if they want to check me out on LinkedIn. But again, they can call 833 PGA Golf and or go right to my website at ChristianCzaja.com. And also for the listeners, if they have any questions and they want to run it by me on anything, they can feel free to contact me, especially through my website, and I'll get back to them there. But again, 833 PGA Golf, and hope to hear from everybody. And Boca is a great, Palm Beach County is a real golf mecca, as you know. There's so many pros and living in this area that it's just great. It's a great year-round golf here. It's really, really good. Our section, South Florida section, is doing great. Junior golf is exploding with the junior league down here in South Florida. So the section's doing an outstanding job there. So it's really it's a fun area to work in. I see a lot of the tour pros around town. I mean, we see I saw Dustin at Starbucks the other morning. We see Ricky Fowler, Michelle Wee. They're all the top clubs down here. There are so many tour pros, and but yeah, check it out. And again, they're welcome to come see me at Boca West. And I want to thank you again, Ted, for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you as always. And like I said, I'll be in touch with the schedule and we'll see if we can work you in. I think you'd be a great asset to the show. Again, Chris, thank you for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's been an honor and a pleasure for me as well. I always enjoy exchanging some thoughts, and I, as my guests always feel that they have an opportunity here on the show to come and share their information with my audience, which is, of course, global, and it's one of the beauties of doing this particular type of format is anybody from all over the world can pick up on this. So thank you for sharing that, Chris. And I'm gonna take you up on your offer. I think I might just make it down to Boca one of these days, real soon, and we'll get together and you can show me some of the great golfing that's going down in your neck of the woods. But Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted.
Yeah,
all the best.
Not a problem. Have a great all the best, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Cheers.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was my very special guest this evening, Chris Czaja, PGA Professional and PGA Teacher of the Year in South Florida at the Boca West Country Club. You can find him there. And just a great guy. And as I said, I'm going to try and get him on the Coach's Corner panel here in the upcoming months, so hopefully he'll be able to jump in on a few of the panel discussions. I think you'll have a good time. And also, speaking of which, thank you again to John Decker and Clint Wright for doing a phenomenal job on tonight's Coach's Corner panel. Always enjoy their input, a couple of great professionals, and I enjoy all of them, actually, all of the men and ladies that come on the Coach's Corner panel. We have a good time every week on the show. Just a couple of quick thank yous. First off, I want to thank you, the listeners, for faithfully tuning in literally from all over the world, tuning into Golf Talk Live each and every week. And I say this then, and I'll say this again. I have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teach professionals, authors, and even some entrepreneurs stop by. And it's really through their participation and guest appearances that have helped to make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. In addition, I want to thank some special sponsors and supporters of the show, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com. Great publication in the southeastern part of the United States. A lot of great courses literally from Texas right over here into the northwest part of Florida and all states in between. Meredith Kirk from Meredith Kirk Golf. Go to meredithkirk.com is her website. Thank you, Meredith, for all of your continued support of the show as well. Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, great couple. Nikki, of course, is a golf professional, and his lovely wife, Tiffany, have always been big supporters of the show. So thank you guys for all of your help in spreading the word of the program over the years. My good friend, Mr. Bernie Pinder, from up in the Michigan area, and owner and founder of Ontic Golf, a great line of custom putters. Go to onticgolf.com, and that's ONTIC golf.com to check out some of the latest and greatest products that he has available there. Sean Kelly, the owner of linkedgolfers.com, a great social media platform that he started, Linked Golfers, on LinkedIn, which is the largest golf group, taking that out to his own platform. Still does the Linked Golfers group on LinkedIn, but has taken it a little step further on the other parts of the social media ladder, if you will, and platform. So go to linkedgolfers.com and check out some of the great things that he's got on his site there. And last but not least, certainly Peter Doyle, great teacher professional and great club fitter as well from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thank you, my good friend and buddy, for all of your continued support over the year. And again, I can't thank you all enough for keeping the show going and tuning in and supporting the program. Keep up listening to the show. Hopefully you'll learn something each and every week, not only on the Coach's Corner panel, but with some of my great guests as well, like tonight. So on behalf of all of my guests and all of you out there, thank you. God bless everybody. And in our thoughts and prayers to all of the folks out in Texas and Louisiana and other parts surrounding, Godspeed, and let's get everything moving as quick as we can to get people back and their families and loved ones. And please show your support, as I said earlier, if you can, contact your local church, local government offices, and find out how you can participate either financially or even maybe volunteer to help some of the folks that are struggling out there in that area right now as a result of some of the recent devastation with Hurricane Harvey. And keep our fingers crossed and in our prayers that the next wave of storms, I understand there's another tropical depression coming through potentially in the area. Tropical storm Irma, I believe, is the next one. Hopefully it'll miss the U.S. and just stay out in the Atlantic and fizzle out. But our thoughts and prayers there that happens. But on that note, everybody have a great Labor Day weekend coming up here in just a day. And God bless everybody. And I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks, everybody.